Welcome to the first episode of my podcast called Journeys by Steph. I'm super excited and I hope you guys are too. My first guest for today is Sharifa Al Busaidi.
Right.
So, Sharifa, welcome and thank you for being my first guest.
Thank you for having me.
Would you like to do the honors of introducing yourself?
Sure. I am Sharifa Al Busaidi. I am half Omani and half American. My dad's Omani and my mom's American. By day, I am a banker, and by night, I'm a food blogger.
Thank you. That sounds super exciting. And so we're going to start by tapping more into a couple of things. First of all, how was it like being raised with an Omani dad and an American mom?
As a child, quite confusing.
Okay.
I was raised in Bahrain, and of course, Bahrain, Muslim culture, Arabic culture. And then we would go in the summers to the States, and suddenly it was something different. It was Christmas, it was American people, it was an entirely different and opposite culture. So as a child, it was a bit confusing. It's like, am I supposed to be like this, like the way that Arabs are, or am I supposed to be like this, the way that Americans are? So definitely it was quite confusing. Fun, definitely at times, but quite confusing being a mixed child with two cultures.
And so how did that kind of shape you into the person that you are today?
Today I feel extremely blessed being mixed because I feel like my mind is so open.
Okay.
It's open to different cultures. It's open to different religions, to different people, understanding people's different backgrounds. And it helps me to understand why people act the way that they do, why the world is the way that it is.
Okay.
And most importantly, it ensures that I'm not a judgmental person because, I've kind of seen it all from both perspectives.
True.
And so, I am happy to say I'm a very open-minded person today because of it.
And so going back to your parents, how did they play a role or how did they approach both concepts when it comes to things like family or, spirituality?
Sure. So the best part of it is the fact that my dad is extremely open-minded in general.
Okay.
So he always taught us that, yes, we are Arabs and we are Muslims, but my other half is Christian, and I should embrace and respect all religions. So one of the things that I remember is being in the States, and my grandmother was, it was a Sunday, and so I knew that Grandma went to church every Sunday, and I was just very curious. And so I had asked my dad, like, what is church like? And he said there was no harm in me going and seeing
That's very nice.
what church was like. And so I went with my grandmother to church, and it was just a beautiful experience, just seeing something entirely different.
Okay.
So I feel like I got quite lucky having an open-minded Arabic father, because with our culture, talking about the Arabic half, often the dad is the captain, the dad is the boss, and so he runs the show. He says what's allowed and what's not allowed, and so having him be so open, it helped me to actually get to see and experience the other side, the other side of myself, the American side.
All right. And how did your mother play a role in that as well?
Mom is also extremely open-minded, and she really embraced the Arabic culture. As a start, Mom decided on her own to convert to Islam. She decided to go through all of the learnings, to go through the process of learning what Islam was all about. And so seeing her, the American, embrace the Muslim Arabic life was also very interesting. But yes, she actually spent a lot of time making sure that we were not forgetting our Arabic or Muslim roots. It's like, yes, you have this American side, but her focus was very much on the Arabic Muslim side. So it's like, don't forget these things. Make sure you learn these lessons. Make sure that you are in line with what your culture and your religion says that you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to be doing.
I like this. I like this approach. I think it's very nice. Let me ask you this. Was there any kind of cultural shock that you faced at one point in your life?
To be honest, I can still remember the first time I had I'd say, culturally shocking experience, but it's not what you would expect.
Okay, please do share.
All right, so as I had mentioned, I was raised in Bahrain. So because I was raised in Bahrain, my Omani family was not there.
True.
And one thing you learn about the Omani culture as you spend more time here is that there's a huge importance placed on what people think of you, how people perceive you. Many, I would say most of the decisions that are made are on that basis. So, living in Bahrain and being raised in Bahrain, I didn't have that.
Okay.
So in Bahrain, I was literally just the way that I am now, had my childhood, went through life, and then when I was 15, the decision was made for us to move to Oman. So the culturally shocking moment was when we arrived in Oman and my dad was like, I need to talk to you. So I was like, okay. And he explained to me that I needed to start wearing abayas. And I will never forget that moment because for me, abayas was something that was for like our grandmothers and, you know, for aunts.
Different generations.
A different generation and why. And just having that conversation with my dad where he was explaining to me that we're now in our country, we're amongst our people, I'll never forget this. He said the reputation of the entire family is on the shoulders of the girls.
Oh, wow.
So that was when I had to put on my first abaya. And it was a very shocking moment.
So how did that make you feel back then? And how do you feel about it now?
Back then, to be honest, I was a teenager, so I was not happy. It made me feel as if my Omani Arabic side was restrictive. You know, I couldn't understand if my clothing was conservative. Like, why did I need to wear a abaya? Why did I need to focus so much on how other people perceived me? I just felt that it was a huge responsibility that was placed on my shoulders that I couldn't comprehend. It's not something that I was able to really understand or accept or embrace, and it made me quite resentful. It made me feel rebellious, which of course, as a teenager,
we all are.
we all are. But yeah, so that's how it made me feel then. Now, as I'm older and I look back on that moment, I understand what my father was trying to explain. He was trying to make sure that I understood that as Arabs, there is a certain level of responsibility that we have in preserving our family's reputation. And that reputation is something that is important, for sure, as a Muslim and as an Arab. So I appreciate that now. Not at the time, but I appreciate it now.
And if you had, let's say, a younger sister right now who was maybe going through the same thing, what would you tell her? Knowing what you went through and what you're kind of, where you are at now.
Yes. I would explain to her that the way that the world is, there are different cultures, different traditions, different customs, and we have to learn to be open. The key is in being open. So, and acknowledging the fact that, yes, that's different, that culture is different, but that's okay. It doesn't mean that there's one that's right or wrong or better.
Agreed.
They're just different. And when you have that openness, then it helps you to be able to embrace and enjoy the differences.
I like this. I like the whole point of enjoying differences. I feel a lot of people tend to focus so much on either being resentful, as you said, like a teenager, or focusing a lot on why certain things are a certain way rather than really embracing the difference and learning how to kind of live with it.
Yes.
But speaking of differences and embracing differences, language is definitely one that I would love to ask about, because I know that when you talk about Omani versus American, completely two opposite languages, right? You have the English language versus the Arabic language.
Yes.
And how did your parents kind of bring that in?
Interestingly enough, the language aspect is impacting my life more now than it ever did before. With the language aspect, my dad actually was very well educated, and so he always spoke English perfectly. So what ended up happening is, in our household, we always spoke in English.
Okay.
Now, and he always used to say it's important to make sure that we speak in English out of respect to my mom, because my mom doesn't know how to speak Arabic.
Fair enough.
So we grew up in a very English household. I don't want to say negative aspect, but I'll say the consequence of that is the fact that I am now an Omani woman who speaks English as a first language and Arabic actually as a second.
Okay.
Now, this becomes an issue when you're here and you're in situations, let's say, where you have to go to government institutions, you have certain things you need to take care of. They look at your name, they see the fact that, okay, it's Sharifa and she's Busaidi, she's Omani.
Correct.
Why doesn't she understand what I'm saying? So the Arabic aspect is there. I speak Arabic, I understand Arabic, but it is my second language. So that is something that is so difficult for the traditional Omani person to be able to grasp.
Okay.
In their minds, what your mom is a nationality. Okay, your mom is American. بس انت عمانية. That's what I always get told. Or I always get asked, ما انت عمانية? But my mom is not just a nationality. Like, she instilled a certain culture inside me. And the culture in our home is very much westernized, even though we're Omani.
I love that you just brought this up, because this is something that a lot of people tend to have a misconception on. Just because you are of a certain nationality, it does not define who you are as a person and what is your cultural being. And I think the fact that you brought it up on the first show is awesome, because it really, really highlights the importance of how we are as human beings and what kind of culture we instill in ourselves and what we want to kind of work around when it comes to, let's say, our family or our community. And regardless of our nationality, which can be absolutely anything, it does not define who we are as people. And I
can testify to that.
Exactly. You can definitely testify to that. And I think this is just amazing to be brought up here. But on that note, and speaking of those things, what is maybe a stereotype that you feel people had towards you, and how did you kind of overcome that stereotype?
So, interestingly enough, when it comes to stereotype, I wouldn't say it's necessarily me that directly had to deal with it. I would say it's more my mother.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is the expectation is she's an American woman. So for sure, she's raising these kids in a westernized way that's very open and too liberal and not in line with our cultures and our traditions and our ways. So because of that, and as a consequence of that, and because my mom was so aware of that, she worked overtime to make sure that we were as Arabic as possible.
Oh, wow.
So what ended up happening is I ended up having way stricter rules than all of my friends that were around me.
Okay.
My mom was constantly worried that if my brothers and I somehow ended up doing anything wrong or that wasn't in line with the culture, that she would be blamed for that. So the stereotype that was there is that every American raises their child in a way that is just too open for this society. So that, I would say, was the biggest stereotype, oh, American mom. So, you guys are a lost cause, basically.
And did that play a role when you went back to the States?
So being in the States, okay, so the interesting part is it wasn't until I went to the States and studied in university, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't just visiting, I was living in the States. That actually is the moment when I realized the fact that I did have a kind of identity crisis.
Very interesting. Okay.
Because as an Arab, I always felt that, okay, yeah, I'm very westernized. So for sure, when I go to the States, I'm going to just fit right in.
That's true.
And I shockingly discovered the fact that when I got to the States, I didn't feel like I actually belonged there, nor did I feel like I was like an American. That was when my Arabic roots would surprise me and kick in, and I would be, just very conservative somehow. I would be very cautious. I found myself doing things like making sure that I had bukhur and oud and all of these things, and I would ride around in the States like listening to Arabic music. So it was very interesting. Like, I suddenly realized when I was there that I didn't quite feel Arabic enough here, and I didn't feel Western enough there.
And this is what we call really being your own cultural person and creating your own sense of culture and belonging. You took a bit of here and you took a bit of there, and you created something that is honestly unique to only you in this case.
Yeah.
But now, growing up and having lived in the States and being back, do you feel you're more prone to adapting, let's say, to where you are now, or how do you kind of deal with all of that?
I think after the journey that I've been through, I've realized the fact that yes, it does help me to be able to adapt and to be open. However, as far as my identity culturally, I've realized the fact that I am an American on the outside, and I'm very Omani on the inside.
I like this description.
I always explain to Omanis, I'm like, it's interesting because we have the same passport. You're Omani,
Yeah.
I'm Omani. I'm like, but the way that I experience Oman
Is different.
is very different. It's because I wasn't raised here, because I lived in the States for a while. I look at Oman from an outside perspective, and it makes me really appreciate it. I appreciate its beauty. I appreciate the culture. I appreciate the traditions. I like how every different area is, different dialects, different dishes, the different subcultures that you have within Oman.
True.
And I realized that's where my comfort is.
I love this. Moving on from that and tapping into the fact that you are also a foodie, and we need to bring this to the table. How has your kind of upbringing played a role in you becoming a foodie?
It actually played a very, very big role, because I was in that household where today I would have, for example, like a chicken makboos or a kebsa dish, And then tomorrow, mom was making a broccoli casserole and macaroni and cheese, and Thanksgiving, and I'd have turkey. And so it was like two different worlds, two completely different cuisines. And yet I was able to appreciate the beauty and the difference in both. And so I like that because it helped me to kind of get to a point where I don't have that expectation with cuisines. I don't have that programming where this is what I like and that's it. It's like, just try these different flavors. Like, enjoy the different spices that this culture has, this cuisine has. And so it played a very, very big role in creating Sharifa the foodie who's open to trying everything, which I love to do.
And so what is maybe one traditional dish from both that you would highly recommend people to try?
Okay, from the Arabic side, for sure, our rice dishes are amazing. And I would specifically say biryani, but there are, of course, many different cultures that eat biryani.
True.
So I would specifically say the Zanzi biryani.
Okay.
That is something that I was raised eating, and we only had it 2 times a year. Eid 1 and Eid 2.
Right.
It kept it special, but it's so good. But I would say any of our rice dishes, kebsa, makbous, kabuli, like I think we just really nibda when it comes to rice. Like we're just really, really, really good with rice.
Okay.
When it comes to the American culture, for me personally, I like the different casseroles. Like I love broccoli casserole, or I like macaroni and cheese casserole. I love turkey, and the meats. Oh my God, like the ribs when they're slow
You
cooked.
can tell she's a foodie,
Oh,
right?
Just thinking about it. Just thinking about it. But yeah, it's totally different. But I appreciate the different pasta dishes, the different vegetables, the desserts. I have to say, on the American side, I die for the desserts.
I agree.
The pies,
I
the
agree.
cakes. Oh my God, the cobblers, so good. Like so good.
We need to have food here somewhere. But on that note, was there any cultural belief or taboo that somehow influenced your food choices?
I would say when we mention taboo, of course, the biggest taboo is when it comes to the religious aspect of the meat. So, for example, when I'm in the States, the Christian side of my family, they eat pork. The Islamic side, of course, that's completely unacceptable. So over here in Oman, no issues whatsoever.
Correct.
I eat everything. But it is a bit challenging when I get to the States because people like my grandmother, for example, who are very close and who understand the cultural and religious aspect, like grandma always makes sure the fact that there's never any pork anywhere when we're around.
That's nice.
But I have gone through, I would say, challenging conversations with certain family members where it's like, explain it to us. Why can't you eat pork? This is an animal, that's an animal. So I would say meat, just the subject of meat has been the biggest taboo when it comes to food in my life, but on the American side.
Okay. And has it become easier with time or?
It's easier with time in terms of making sure that the people around understand.
Okay.
You know, so in that aspect, because it's tricky. So just picture, for example, I'm in the States during Christmas and somebody says, okay, Christmas dinner at our house, and it's not my grandmother's house.
Yeah.
So then we go through that, you know, discussion with my mom, like what should we eat, what shouldn't we eat, you know, things like that. I would also say alcohol. there are lots of food dishes that have certain liqueurs and alcohol in it. So that I would say is another taboo that influences sometimes the way that I eat.
Okay. Well, on that note, would you like to share like a memorable experience when it comes to a special gathering or a tradition created at home?
That's a tough question.
Like, what is one ritual that you really cherish, or growing up you really kind of loved and you still appreciate that, up until today?
Yes. I would say Thanksgiving.
Okay, why is that?
It's because there's something interesting about being in Oman
With Thanksgiving.
and celebrating Thanksgiving. When I've had the opportunity to celebrate in the States, and the same applies to Christmas dinner.
Correct.
When I'm in the States, it's like, yes, everyone is doing it, every household, but somehow having those traditional Thanksgiving dishes, being here in Oman, being with a group of friends, and I've done this with you.
Yes.
And just taking that moment to really give thanks and to just appreciate life. But doing it here, that is a tradition that we started that I absolutely love. Yeah.
I like that. What is one experience that kind of taught you about another culture? Like, what is one memorable experience that you learned about another culture?
Food-wise?
Food-wise, of course.
Okay. This one I distinctly remember. That moment was actually in Lebanon.
Oh, I had a feeling.
Yes.
I had a strong feeling.
Yes.
Okay.
So I've been eating Lebanese food my entire life. It's there. We know all of the dishes, the lovely
Correct.
hummuses and the different fattoush and salads and grills and all of this. But experiencing Lebanese food in Lebanon was something entirely different.
Okay.
Of course, it was a million times more delicious than I ever expected. But for me, there was a restaurant that I had gone to up in the mountains. I believe it was Brumana.
Yeah, Brumana.
And so when I was there, it was like, I always make sure when I go to every restaurant, I ask, like, what's the top seller? What do people mostly eat? And so I've had kibbeh a million times, but he said kibbeh niyya. And I was like, wait, like, does that mean what it sounds like? Like raw?
Raw, yeah, that's true.
And he was like, yes. And I just had this moment where it was like, okay, raw meat. We don't have anything like this in Omani
How do
cuisine.
I feel about it?
I don't know how I feel about it. And then I just took a moment and I just kind of looked around me, and it's like, Sharifa, you're in Lebanon. This is what Lebanese people eat. One of the things that they eat. Go for it. Have that experience. And I actually took a video so that I could post it in my stories. And I remember that moment of just getting ready to eat it, and I had these expectations of how it was going to be. And it was the most pleasant surprise when I bit into it. And it was so delicious.
It is. I have to agree. It is.
The flavors are so nice. Like, there's nothing, like, there's no sauces. There's nothing distracting you from anything. Like, just the freshness of the meat, the freshness of the ingredients. And I loved it. So that was an experience that I have to say that I had that I always remember in a different country, in a different culture.
And what did this kind of teach you about the Lebanese community?
Ooh. I'd say what I learned about the Lebanese community is how diverse it is, actually.
Okay.
I realized the fact that there are so many different aspects of the Lebanese person.
True.
And sorry, this might not necessarily be linked to food, but I will take this moment, and I'm not just saying this because you're Lebanese. despite the challenges that are being faced or whatever is happening, I love the fact that Lebanese people will all get around a table, feast on this amazing food, laugh their heart and souls out, irrespective of what's happening outside of that house, outside of that moment.
100%.
And the way that Lebanese people love to dance and celebrate. They work hard during the day,
Party hard at night.
during the evening, and I love that. I love that. It was a beautiful experience.
No, and even if it's not related to food, but it is still part of something that you learned about the culture when you visited. I know the answer to this. I think I know the answer to this. But I want to ask you, what is one of like the craziest things that you've done when it comes to food?
Okay. I will talk about the first time I did something crazy when it comes to food. So I was sitting at home. I got a text message from my father, and a WhatsApp message. And so he sent me this video. So I opened the video, and it was an interview, and basically the interviewer was talking to someone that works in a restaurant there about the fact that they had the best biryani in the whole of the Emirates.
Okay.
So I was very curious. I was trying to sit in, because as I had mentioned earlier, I love biryani so much. So I was trying to think, what makes this biryani interesting? What makes it unique? Why does this place, how did they get classified as the best? Because it was one of those simple, I would say, hole-in-the-wall type of restaurants.
And these are usually the best.
So I literally made a decision at that moment. I got up, I got dressed. I drove from Amman to Sharjah.
Oh, wow.
To try this biryani. I ate the biryani and I drove back on the same day.
And that is how you know if a person is a foodie or not.
Yes, that is my craziest moment.
Wow.
Of course, after that, I did this multiple times, including traveling to Saudi just to try a steak and traveling back. But yes, that's when I realized that my level of passion for food is
strong.
Kind of a little out there and crazy.
I love it. And just to kind of wrap it up, what advice would you kind of give people when it comes to, respectfully engaging and learning about another culture through food or through your general overall experience?
I would say two things: respect and openness. If you have those two in place and in mind when it comes to different cultures, then you're good to go. You have to be respectful. You have to make sure that you do not judge whatever the cultural aspects are and traditions of another culture. It's not your culture. It is their culture. This is the way that they were raised. And you have to make sure that you, first of all, respect so that you do not judge. You have to go with an open mind. And that's where the openness part comes in. To be able to really live the cultural experience, you have to be open.
That's true.
You have to get out of the mindset, or you have to get out of your cultural box.
100%.
You place yourself in that environment, be open, and just try things out. Live it, experience it. Go to Japan, put a kimono on. Just go to different cultures and also really immerse yourself.
That's true.
Don't just kind of stand back and be like, okay, that's their thing. Try it out. As long as it doesn't conflict with any of your personal values or beliefs, then go for it. So yes, openness and respect.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this was an amazing conversation. Thank you for being so open and honest about a lot of different things. And
thank you for being so easy to talk to.
Thank you for watching the first episode of Journeys by Steph. Some of the learnings from today's podcast are that we each have our own unique cultural being based on our journey, food plays a very big role in cultures and it brings people together. And 3, and the most important thing is remember who you are and go in with an open mind whenever you're, being introduced to a new culture or meeting new people. Stay tuned for more episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and follow Journeys by Steph.